Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everyone. Bayak Bagdan here, your host for the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks for joining me, by the way. I hope that everybody is doing great. And guys, without begging you to hit those small vanity buttons below this video, allow me to cover the exports of Bangladesh. And basically, I will be covering the top 20 headings that saw the largest absolute changes in 2023 relative to the previous year, both positive and negative. Sorry guys, I didn't get my hands on the data for 2024. While towards the end of this video, I will focus on the top 20 headings that had the smallest variability in this 2019-2023 time frame, which should tell us where Bangladesh has a strong competitive advantage. But guys, more on this in a couple of minutes. So first things first, in what concerns Bangladesh's top 20 headings that had the largest absolute positive change in 2023, it seems that powered aircraft had the largest change, some $132 million. Petroleum oil sat on the second spot with a change of some $89 million, while cotton yarn, other than sewing thread, finished the podium with a change of almost $33 million, bringing thus the overall exported value for 2023 to almost $69 million. And then the list goes on with, I don't know, waste and scrap of aluminium. So heading 7602. Live fish is next with a change of $14.2 million. What else do we see? The paper and paperboard heading is also here. Shawls and scarves is next, while towards the end of the list we see heading 0307. So molluscs, fresh strawberries, raspberries and other berries sits on the 19th spot, with a positive change of some $4.2 million, while other oil seeds ends this top 20 list with a positive change of $3.5 million, bringing the overall exported value to $17 million. So what insights can we squeeze out of this data? Well, in terms of export diversification at the chapter level, we see that there are quite a lot of unique chapters having only one heading, except for these first three, who all have two headings, even though in what concerns the cumulative value of the exports for these three, we're not seeing impressive figures. So this is one insight. And another one relates to the compound annual growth rates. And looking at these figures, almost all of them have double-digit figures, which could mean that export diversification from the traditional garment sector in Bangladesh is in full swing, but quite regional in scale, and basically the market areas of these exports are relatively close to Bangladesh. So guys, these were Bangladesh's top 20 absolute positive changes and headings respectively, and now I will take a look at the negative ones. And here we see that heading 6109 saw the largest contraction, some $1.35 billion for 2023 relative to the previous year. Then we see pullovers and cardigans with a similar value, so quite worrying, while jackets, blazers and trousers, so heading 6203, ends the podium with a contraction close to $1.2 billion. And then the list goes on with a couple of clothing headings. Towards the middle of this list, we see bed linen and table linen, who saw a contraction of $220 million. Special garments for professional sporting or other purposes is next, while towards the end of the list we see crustaceans, whether in shell or not. So I'm talking about heading 0306, who had a contraction of almost $112 million. Men's or boys' shirts, knitted or crushed, is on the 19th spot, while heading 6505, so hats and other headgear, ends the top 20 list with a contraction of some $102 million. And again, guys, following the example from the previous sheet, let's see what insights can we extract from this data. And basically, on the summary chart here, we see that the number of unique chapters is quite small, hugely skewed towards chapter 61, which covers articles of apparel and clothing accessories, knitted or crocheted, which is having 9 headings, and not surprisingly, the largest cumulative exported value. Bearing in mind these 8 chapters, and considering the number of headings, it is safe to say that this industry is very, very important to Bangladesh. I already knew that, but the depth of this chapter is basically confirming my estimate, let's say. So this is one insight, and another one relates to the compound annual growth rates for these last 5 years, which now look pretty good, positive figures for all of the headings almost. But as I like to remember everyone, context has a lot to do with this performance. And if we look closely, 2022 was the year in which almost all of the headings had the largest exported amount, which is a direct result from the irrational sentiment that the demand following COVID-19 will endure for the long run, which, as we all know by now, didn't hold true. And what we should see, in fact, is a regression to the pre-pandemic levels, at least in what concerns the headings related to clothing, headgear, and footwear. Otherwise, guys, nothing exceptionally worrying, except maybe for the heading relating to crustaceans, who had a negative 7.66% compound annual growth rate for the last 5 years, because Bangladesh is losing market in both the United Kingdom and the United States. Sorry. Anyways, moving now to Bangladesh's top 20 headings with the smallest variability, which is basically the standard deviation over mean for exported values. It seems that cotton waste is on the first spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.065. Articles of apparel and clothing accessories of leather is on the second spot with a coefficient of variation of 0.074. And some, $40 million worth of exports for 2023, while babies' garments ends the podium with a coefficient of variation of 0.074, but with an export figure almost 10 times higher than the previous. And then the list goes on with, I don't know, instruments and appliances used in medical, surgical, or dental sciences. Frozen fish is also present with a coefficient of variation of 0.092. Then we see polymers of ethylene in primary forms, who has a coefficient of variation of 0.094. While towards the end of the list we see ropes and cables, basically heading 5607 with a coefficient of variation of 0.12. Shirts and blouses for women is on the 19th spot, while jackets and blazers, again for women, ends the top 20 list with a coefficient of variation of 0.126 and an impressive $5.9 billion worth of exports in 2023, by far the largest amount in this top 20 list. Now, in terms of insights, if we look at the chart, the number of unique chapters is quite large, even though most of them have only one heading and relatively small cumulative export figures. But then we see Its Holiness, chapter 62, the largest one, considering both the number of headings and cumulative exports, confirming the competitive advantage of Bangladesh in what concerns apparel exports. In this case, apparel that is neither knitted or nor crushed. As for the compound annual growth rate, okay, we have a couple of negative values, and most probably the export values will decline further. But on the grand scale of things, guys, so using the export values as a proxy, these are not strategic sectors for Bangladesh, so nothing worrying if you ask me. Anyways, with this being covered as well, guys, my job here is done. I hope you liked it. Thank me by hitting those small vanity buttons. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.